Vegan campaigners have turned against an animal rights group after its members poured litres of milk on the floor of a high-end London department store.
Yes, Animal Rebellion caused outrage with the protest in Harrods, which they say highlights the environmental impact of the dairy industry. But vegan campaigners say they embarrassed the cause. So did the protest help push their agenda, or did it make them look like wasteful hypocrites?
We're joined now by Dan Kidby of Animal Rebellion, who says controversial action needs to be taken to get people talking. We're also joined by broadcaster Christo Fufas, who doesn't drink milk for animal welfare reasons and says the stunt is attention-seeking and childish. Let's come to you, Dan. It does seem a little bit strange, this. You're trying to sort of promote the sort of not really wasting milk and not really consuming milk, yet you bought all this milk and then spilt it on the floors and no one can consume it and it's complete and utter waste. I mean, it just feels a little bit ridiculous.
Oh, well, first of all, we didn't buy the milk.
Oh, OK. Where did you get it from?
Well, so you just stole it?
Straight off the aisle, yeah.
Oh, right, OK. So you stole the milk and then... So you stole the milk, first of all, and then you spilt it on the floor. What point does any of that make?
So, I mean, I think, first of all, it's important to acknowledge that we are facing wildfires in England this weekend. It's like we're in a climate and ecological emergency and the situation is extremely grave. What we know is that animal farming and fishing are leading causes of this crisis. The science is very clear that if we support farmers to transition over to plant-based food production, then we can free up large swathes of land, 50% of UK land, to rewild and return the forests. And through that, we bring back the forests, the badgers, the hedgehogs that are all dying in this country en masse. And we can also draw down significant amounts of carbon dioxide. So much so that there are many people at the UN and major reports saying that this is the key solution to the climate crisis. The UK can be net negative in emissions if we make this transition. And globally, we can draw down as much carbon dioxide as is currently emitted every year through fossil fuels. Okay. So, I understand what you're saying, that it appears wasteful, it appears hypocritical, but frankly, we're in an emergency right now. And there is a long tradition of non-violent protest, which what it does is the dynamic is it causes controversy, and that creates a massive conversation, and we can finally talk about these really crucial issues, because right now the government are not acting. There's no meaningful action on the climate crisis, and it's just going to get worse and worse.
OK.
So let's come to you, because, you've obviously chosen not to drink milk for animal welfare reasons. What do you make of what Dan had to say there, that it's an emergency? This is one way to get the point across. Yes, it's controversial, but it gets people talking about the situation.
I'm afraid I think that this was a spectacular own goal. I think it sort of screams of this middle-class entitlement of, yeah, let's go for a jaunt to London, to Harrods in the sunshine and pour milk everywhere to make the point that dairy is wasteful. And it screams of exactly the sort of own goals that you see from Extinction Rebellion, creating pollution by closing roads and congestion in order to make a point about pollution, gluing yourself to trains in order to encourage people to make a point about using public transport. Now, if you are losing vegans who are saying this is not something that represents us, how on earth would you expect to take the general public along with you? And it's the general public that are going to try and make any kind of meaningful change around this. I think you actually have some fair points about the misery of the dairy industry and how we should all be consuming a little bit less. But you're also pushing at an open door. The alternative milk industry is due to be worth £500 million in the next few years. £2 billion is how much the plant-based food industry is in Europe at the moment. That's going up 20% a year. So people are with you, but when you carry out stunts like this, you lose members of the public.
Well,
and it's frankly moronic.
Let Dan come in on that. It's hypocritical, Dan.
Well, I mean, I think it's great because we agree on so much, and I think that's actually wonderful. It's like, yeah, we are seeing this massive disruption through this technological change with precision fermentation and the alternative proteins and so on. And what that is predicted to do, there's a report from Rethink X, which is a big think tank that looks at these things, and what they said is that this is going to completely cause the collapse of the dairy industry because they're not going to be able to compete on price.
But no, but you,
and the government
respectfully,
I'm
sorry to interrupt, but you're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite. Where we don't agree at all, I abhor your methods. Going into Harrods, where the lowest paid workers, security workers as well, are going to be cleaning up all this milk all over the floor, and there's a cost of living...
Dan, do you still stand by, do you still stand by the decision to take that milk and to waste it? Or now, looking back, do you think, actually, we should have done something differently to make our point?
Well, I think, so I do stand by what we did, I completely do, because, I mean, when we're talking about 8 pints of milk, which I think is how many was poured out, compared to the complete devastation and catastrophe of our entire ecosystems and living world. It's like we are facing mass food shortages by 2040.
A protest that loses supporters. It's a protest that has lost you supporters. That is not a successful protest.
But you just said that like, you agree with many of the...
Yeah, but I agree with it beforehand, but I don't agree with your methods.
Yeah, but you
haven't won me over. I thought I drank less milk and mainly drink oat milk before you did this, but there are a number of people that have messaged me on Twitter that have said...
What it has done, I mean, in the end, if you think about any protest, I mean, any protest is there to cause disruption, sometimes by any means necessary. If you go back to the suffragette movements, I mean, some of the extreme measures the suffragettes took, but that led to women's rights. I mean, protests are protests, and we are talking about it. To be fair, he's having his say. He's talking about... There might be somebody at home who doesn't know anything about this issue, and he's just raised it.
But presumably, the goal of a protest is to have people along with you, to have members of the public say they're making actually a fair point. Whereas if you're losing, I'll go back to the point I made at the start, if you're losing vegans, if you've got people messaging on Twitter saying, I'm sorry, I'm going to pour a load of milk away, I'm going to go and buy 10 pints of milk.
What should they have done? What kind of protest do you think
I agree with the logic of when you scale DEFRA, because at least then you're targeting the Department of Food and Agriculture. That's something that could make a meaningful change. But pouring milk all over the floor, wasting it, when your point is that the dairy industry is wasteful, I'll say it again, it's moronic. I'm sorry.
Well, my point is that the key solution to the climate crisis, as is being said by scientists, is to transition these industries and move into a plant-based food system and rewild those lands. That's the key solution. In terms of what we've done, it's like, this isn't a popularity contest. Like, I'm very aware that many people sitting at home are going to hate what we've done. And I'm willing to shoulder that because I'm not a politician. I'm not trying to get elected. For me, it's about the cause in this conversation.
Which you want people to agree with. You want people to agree with that cause.
Which they will, because the science is on our side.
Deep down, you must, now looking back on it, I really think you must regret it. Now, the backlash and that people are saying, look, this is... Even vegans are saying this does not represent us. You must, deep down, think that this has backfired.
So can I say one thing? So, like, Insulate Britain, when they were doing their protests, there was a lot of backlash against them, right? But yet we saw insulation drive up the policy agenda. And, like, whilst everyone was saying Insulate Britain are terrible, Keir Starmer was coming out, making it a part of the Labour Party manifesto. So... The dynamic is, people might not like us, but the issue gets discussed. Okay. And frankly, it is the key solution to the climate crisis.
Right. We are going to have to leave it there.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dan Kidby of Animal Rebellion, and also broadcaster Christo Fufas. Thanks for joining us both this morning. Thanks, guys.